Today I'm going to talk about Nissan's CVT gearboxes, found in common models like the Note, the Duke, the Qashqai and so on. These can be problematic as well as quite expensive to repair. As well as having seen a few of these failures firsthand, I also used to be involved in the stress testing of CVT components for the automotive industry, so I do know a little bit about them. Let's get into why you should probably avoid them when making your next purchase. Hello and a very warm welcome back to the channel. So this was actually inspired by a few of my one-to-one calls lately with individuals who were looking for reliable automatics and they had a CVT equipped Nissan on their list. It made me realise we probably don't talk about the problems with these gearboxes quite enough, so here we are. Now, to begin with, let me very briefly explain what a CVT or continuously variable transmission actually is. So, to begin, it's worth realising we've got three different types of automatic transmissions, generally speaking. And these are, well, the first is the CVT. The other two are the traditional automatic, which utilises a torque converter, which is older technology, but typically very reliable. And then finally, we've got dual clutch systems, which utilise two different sets of clutches, and that allows for very fast gear changes. Now, the CVT, that's the topic we're talking about here. So the way in which it works is by adjusting the gear ratios to suit the driving condition. So as you pull away from a standstill, it can provide a very low gear ratio. And if you're up at motorway speeds, it can change that to a very high gear ratio to keep the RPMs nice and low and favour economy. Now, unlike any other type of fixed ratio gearbox, a CVT is capable of constant variation, as the name suggests. Now, understanding how it actually functions is key to understanding why Nissan CVTs in particular are flawed. So again, humour me, allow me to show you. You've got an input and an output pulley, both of which are connected with a steel banded belt. Now, both of those pulley centres, they're fixed in place, but notice the shape. It's conical. What that means is by squeezing in on the belt from the input side, it can push that belt further out from its axis, mimicking a larger gear. Meanwhile, the output pulley, that'll widen, drawing the belt closer to its axis, mimicking a smaller gear. So it's constantly varying the gear ratios. Here's an example with one exposed that can probably explain it far better than I can. It is, as you can see, from an engineering standpoint at least, quite remarkable. It uses fewer moving parts than a traditional gearbox. It can constantly provide optimal gearing for any situation, and it's even got less friction than a traditional gearbox, meaning better economy. Now, the fairly obvious downside is we've got a bunch of components here which are, of course, they're going to be more delicate than a set of hardened gears. The likes of Honda and Toyota, they understood this, and that was typically why we've seen them put them in little lightweight, low-powered cars like the Jazz, for instance. The first big red flag for Nissan is they didn't just fit them into little low-powered cars. The Qashqai, for one, that isn't exactly small, but far worse than that. They were also putting these CVTs into stuff like 3.5 litre Pathfinders, which were rated for towing. It's a bit like a bungee cord. It'll last for humans, but if you strap an elephant into it, you're going to have some problems. So what tends to go wrong then? Well, let's start with the belt, because that's the star of the show, isn't it? Despite its unassuming appearance, these are actually incredibly complex. You've got hundreds of flat elements slotted into steel bands, which are in contact with these steel drums. Now this, of course, it creates a lot of heat under normal conditions, but if one of those variating drums, one of the things which are altering the diameter of the belt, if one of those isn't doing its job properly, then that belt starts to slip, and that, of course, creates even more heat. Now, what all of this really needs is a good, effective cooling system, which these did not have at all. This is one of the fatal flaws. In fact, the cooling system was pretty inadequate, so all of these metal-on-metal parts, they're all running at a much higher temperature than was intended, which of course, again, that just wears everything out even quicker. Now, another factor which made the whole ordeal even worse was, as many manufacturers do, they said it was sealed for life, and I really, really hate that expression. A proper bugbear of mine of semi-modern cars. They said there was no oil changes needed, which allowed them to market it as an extremely low-cost ownership with extremely low-cost servicing. So it's the perfect storm. You've got components which don't have much tolerance for abuse, you've got an inadequate cooling system, and you've got little to no maintenance being carried out on these gearboxes. You can start to see why the failure rate was creeping up. Nissan themselves, they were aware of the issues with these gearboxes, and they even pressed the manufacturer, Jatco, way back in 2013 to sort it out after a spate of customer complaints, with CVTs not even outlasting the original warranty. Over in the USA, there's been several class action lawsuits brought against Nissan as a result of these, even when they knew there was a problem and had extended the US warranty to account for it. They continued to sell them to customers here as if there was no problems. This can be quite common. We see it in the car world quite a lot, and I put it down to the litigious ways of the USA. We've seen the exact same with Ford's EcoBoost engine, the problematic EcoBoost engine, where they were made to act and help customers out in the USA, but over here, there was nothing. Now, it absolutely goes without saying, I do not recommend that you buy one of these. There are plenty of better alternatives out there, and when you do find one of those, remember to do a quality HPI check. The one that I always recommend and have a 20% discount for is Vehicle Score, which I'll add to the description below if you want to make use of it. They do even offer a free check if you don't want to be parting with the readies. Now, if you already own one of these CVT equipped Nissans, then really all you can do is get that gearbox and cooling system serviced regularly, even against the manufacturer advice. The early symptoms are it'll start to get louder. It's more of a humming noise rather than a more typical whining noise that you would expect from a gearbox. And what you're hearing with that hum is actually that bell against the drums. That's telling you that things are becoming a bit worn, and then that's going to be followed by the notorious slipping and jumping sensation, at which point you're going to need to find a garage with some experience of repairing these. Now, I do hope this has been useful. As ever, please do hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. I'll see you for the next one.